Call the York County Council meeting to order. For those of you who are sitting in the semi-dark, we will let you know that the lights cannot be turned on. We're having an electrical issue with that row of lights. So if you'll just indulge us tonight, we will have them ready and back on in August. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be by Council Member Dr. Britt Blackwell.
You'd stand and get you to bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you respect and acknowledge you as our Creator and Provider. Thank you for everyone that is attending this meeting tonight. We come to you asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we conduct the business of the citizens of York County. Help us to engage in meaningful discussions and bless our efforts with clear insight. May we act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under appearances, would Sergeant Randy Gibson please come forward?
So inclined. It's been an honor and privilege to serve York County citizens for the last 30 years. I've enjoyed my time, but now it's time for me to call it and go spend the rest of my life with my family, my lovely bride, Brandy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Virginia Kaiser, please come forward. Thank you for your 23 years of service to York County. Thank you very much. And please, you also get to say words if you would like.
Well, I haven't made as long as Randy, and I'm not a cop, but I work with them, and I work with the solicitor's office. So I'm glad to have spent this time working for York County, and I've learned a lot, and I've made a lot of friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you.
And lastly, David Harmon. I was elected to council in 2012 and started serving January 2013. David was one of those people who's been here ever since I've been here. And I'm sitting up there hearing him tell me a minute ago that this was his last meeting, and it kind of hit me that he won't be here. And when you lose institutional knowledge, especially when you're a council person, it is a huge loss. You will be greatly missed. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I get to speak. Thank you. I just want to thank our council, both present council and past councils that I've had the opportunity to work with. It's been a pleasure. It's your dedication to York County is beyond compare, and as Mr. Kerwood would say, you had my admiration and my sympathy. So I'll use that for him. Some things that I'll leave from York County. This has been my home for the last 18 years, and this is a place I've come to every day. So it's hard to leave. It's hard to make the decision to retire, but that time has come, just like Randy had said. It's here. And my wife and I, Sandra, we look forward to traveling. We look forward to spending time with our grandchildren and playing in York County, so that's a good part of that. I want to thank the employees that I've worked with. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of employees, and that's been an honor and privilege also, because we have excellent employees. And that's one thing that I leave with is a lot of friendships from the relationships that have been fostered over the past 18 years. So I'm real pleased with that. So those don't go away, they just change a little bit. But we are looking forward to life after work. York County is a place, to borrow a phrase from York County Beautiful, where we live, work, and play. And we still plan to live here, and we plan to play here. And we will work in some form or fashion. Again, it's been an honor and privilege to work with York County, and I just thank you for what you do. And thank you for the clock that I will gladly exchange for a Glock.
Eleanor Boyd with the Lancaster Fatherhood Project to discuss with council the needs that exist in York County.
I'm going to cede the microphone to the Executive Director, Mr. Tyrone Faulkner.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tyrone Faulkner. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Lancaster Fatherhood Project. But I want to emphasize that our name has been changed at the Secretary of State's office and at the IRS. We are now a Father's Way, so that we can be involved in York County community. We've been here for 2 years so far, and we're looking forward to continue to be here and make York County our home and make our services provided to the fathers and their families. To Council Chairman Johnson and their entire council, on behalf of our board and staff and the fathers in York County, we just want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity just to speak with you, just to give you a little more insight of what we're trying to do here in York County. Based on the census data, in America today, there are 19.7 million children being raised in a father-absent home. That means there is no biological father, no stepfather, no adoptive father. This is 1 in 4 children. We know that that's a disturbing and startling statistic, but what does that really mean? Children raised without a father, an active and engaged father, are 4 times more likely to grow up and remain in poverty, 7 times more likely to become a teenage parent. They are more likely to face abuse and neglect, and 2 times more likely to drop out of high school, as well as more likely to commit crimes and go to prison. So, and this statistic only scratched the surface of the negative possible societal issues that impact children and families today. A Father's Way works every day to address these issues by providing comprehensive fatherhood services to fathers serving York County from our Rock Hill office. We believe is an advantage because we know how hard the York County Council has worked to ensure that this community stays thriving and appealing for new families that want to relocate to York County. And we want to be a positive part of that. Last year in York County alone, we served 122 fathers, which made an impact on 300 children. We know that there are many more fathers who would benefit from our program. We have a current office at 1380 Ebenezer Road, and our plans moving forward is to have a satellite office at Pathways Community Center. We know that strong fathers help to create strong families. Strong families help to make strong communities, and strong communities create a stronger York County. So on behalf of the Lancaster Fatherhood Project, soon to be a Father's Way, we just want council to know that we are in the community, we're involved in the community. We want to make every father the very best dad that they can be, so that their children can look up to their dads, and their children can be provided by the father. So our program is there. We work directly with the family court system so that instead of incarcerating every dad that can't pay their child support, they are being sent to our program, and which results in $165,000 being paid in child support, which is a $91,000 savings to the taxpayers. So we are very fortunate and very involved. We would like to serve all dads in every zip code. So I just want to thank the council tonight for giving us the opportunity, and as Ms. Board have gave you some of our programs. So we just want to let you know that we are here to provide these services. We are a grant-funded nonprofit, and we do a lot of fundraisers to help be sustainable. So we are very fortunate. We've been in York County. We've been serving York County for about 5 years, but we have a physical office for about 2 years. In October, it'll be 3 years. So we are very excited about being in York County, and I want to be a part of this community and all of our services so that we can make all of our dads and all of our children and families a greater part of this county. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Clover School District, an impact fee request.
Good evening, Chairman Johnson, members of the County Council. It's wonderful to be in this beautiful facility tonight and talk with you. Normally, our board meetings are on the same night you have meetings, so I haven't had a chance to be here. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Clover School District Board of Trustees to ask and inform the York County Council of our intention to pursue an impact fee for new facilities, land, and other allowable expenses per the law. We have spent the better part of the 2018-19 school year, last school year, completing the appropriate studies to be prepared to begin this process. To date, we have completed the comprehensive demographic study, so we have a very strong understanding of the growth in our school district and what is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. We've done a complete study of our school capacity, so we know where we have space and where we're going to have capacity issues. And in that process, we know that we're going to need an elementary, a middle, and a high school in the next 6 years. We have worked with an independent consultant to propose what to do about that capacity need. What are those building needs and what will be the potential cost? And that's a part of our comprehensive building plan. And then finally, we submitted all of that information to another independent consultant who helped us determine what does it cost to educate a child in Clover School District and what could be potential impact fees for our school district. Beginning in January, we knew that this would be something our community needed information about, so we have begun the process of sharing information with our community. We have had stakeholder meetings in both the Clover and the Lake Wiley community. We've sought input from local builders. I'm continuing to do that even this week. I've got 3 more meetings this week on that. We've worked with developers. We've had the Realtors Association in to hear about it. We've presented to the Lake Wiley Chamber. We've presented to the Clover Town Council, and we've had 1 general public information session open to all citizens. Clover School District has always taken pride in being proactive in our growth. We don't want to get behind, we want to stay ahead. We're proud of our facilities, and we want to maintain those strong facilities and our strong academic reputation. It is our understanding that to complete this process, we are now in that next phase where we have to work with you. It is our understanding that we would need the help of the York County planning staff in developing the ordinance. And so I'm here tonight on behalf of the Board of Trustees to ask for your permission to work with the staff to develop the ordinance so that we can take the next steps. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Under public forum session. In all public forum sessions, you have 2 minutes. I will stress you literally have 2 minutes. You must state your name and your address. And I hate to interrupt you, but at some point I will have to stop. So we appreciate your brevity. Richard Roach.
My name is Richard Roach, like the chairman said. I live at 4150 Mockingbird Lane in Rock Hill. I live in Councilwoman Christy Cox's district, and she put me on the Economic Development Board several years ago, but I was unable to attend because the co-op board meetings were at the exact same time. I'm a board member at York Electric. I was asked questions at Kerwood Chapel's 90th birthday party about the spec building in the York Industrial Park that was built by the county and York Electric Company, and probably Comporium, maybe somebody else, I don't know. And she told me that they had found a buyer for the building. My question to the council is, how long has the building been for sale? What's going to be in the building? What the jobs are going to pay? And how much money was lost due to this sale for the membership of York Electric Company? I have a spreadsheet here that said that they had $2.2 million in it, and they sold the building for $1.6 million. That's a loss of about $600 and something thousand. Our membership does not need to be losing money on spec buildings. We're in the business to sell power to rural areas that Duke Power Company couldn't supply power to when the co-ops were first begun. I don't know, York's unemployment, I think, is below 3%. And there's an awful lot of these $10 jobs out there now that nobody will fill. So I don't know whether we need to take a hard look at this economic development stuff in the future, because the county's getting awful large. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Reagan Craig.
I'm Reagan Craig. I live at 1804 Craig Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I'm here to talk about the new P3 Economic Development Plan that's in front of the council. I saw it was on the agenda. I've been watching this since February because I was very interested to see what was going to happen with this plan, and since then, there's been no workshops, no public hearings, nothing. So I'm going by the outline from February of 2019 that I have, which is the latest and the greatest. And two main issues that really stand out to me. Number one is how the members of this new P3 Economic Development Board would be picked. And bottom line is, from the county, the governmental side, it says that you're going to have one person from Winthrop, one person from York Tech, and then 3 and 4 people, 3 from the Economic Development Committee, and then 1 picked by the chairman. Now, no offense, Michael Johnson, but you live in the worst bedroom community collaborated mess in York County, which is known as Fort Mill, and particularly out near I-77. I know it's not your fault. But the fact is, the issue that I have is that I think on a committee that's this important, that every one of you should stand up for your district and demand that you get a pick. Because you should. Otherwise, how am I taxed? Which this is tax money going in, $800,000 by the graph. How am I being taxed and then I have no representation on that board? I have an issue with that. The other thing too is and so that's one thing that bothers me about it, but we've had no public hearings. The other part was, there was a list of 20 companies or 20 partners that would be under consideration for the private partnership. And York Electric Co-op's one of them. I'm one of the members that's not getting his dividends because the co-op is dumping it into economic development kitties. And so I'm fussing at him because he represents my district about that. And then you look and you got Rock Hill Wire and Tin Can, Comporium. And then Piedmont Medical? Are you kidding me? Do y'all go there if you're sick? I don't. And so my thing is, if you look at the list of who's who, there's an awful lot of lawyers and an awful lot of realtors, but I don't see my elected officials. I don't see anybody out of the top 10 companies in South Carolina from manufacturers. I mean, Domtar's in Fort Mill, GD's there. If you think about getting somebody that's really done some serious economic development, that's my two beefs. Again, but what I'm really after is, I wish you wouldn't approve this until you have a workshop and a public hearing and let some of the rest of us look at it.
Thank you, Reagan.
Thank you very much.
Eleanor Boyd? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, that is fine, that is fine. Paul?
I think most people know me, Paul Anderco in Rock Hill, president of the Reaganites. It's amazing I'm here, again, twice in about 6 weeks, but as a taxpayer, I have a major problem with the proposed new Economic Development Board. The current Education Board is under your control. We have provided, you provided 90% of the money, and it's working. It's working beautifully. I don't think we're missing a beat. Then you want to dissolve the board for something we don't know what we're going to get. There's a lot of positives, and I agree with Reagan about having somebody represent us in each district. And unfortunately, this is something that reminds me of the museum of 20 years ago when they had a separate organization, and it took 20 years of mismanagement of that organization and millions of dollars lost. And here we are again, we're trying to give somebody else the keys. And he wants his own handbook, bylaws. He doesn't want anything to do with county council or the county, and I think that is wrong. You guys have done a great job. I mean, look at the boom we're having under the current economic council. I think it's great. So to me, why fix something that's not broke? And I asked you that question in your mind. And I talked to one of the members saying, oh, you don't know what we're missing. I don't think we're missing a dang thing, the county. If somebody wants to move here, they're gonna go through the Rock Hill Economic Board and through the York. And my time up that fast, huh? Okay, my last line was, I don't want, pay to play. Don't fix if it's not broken. And my closing question, would you give the keys to your brand new car to David Swenson? I would not. Thank you.
Jim Parrish?
My name's Jim Parrish, 68 years of age. Lived in York County all my life except for the United States Marine Corps and several years in seminary out of state. I've been the pastor of Bible Baptist Church in Fort Mill for 40 years. We live in the Newport community. We have submitted a request for rezoning of our 17.5 acres that my sister and I own for a housing development to purchase it, that the county approved the housing development with Century Builders, and they're building 61 houses right up against our property. You also approved the Newport Lakes subdivision, which borders the back of our property. So it has taken all the country away from us and left us stuck with all the building behind us and all the building in front of us. And we would like to sell our property to the builders who have offered us, we believe, a decent price to be able to relocate because we no longer feel comfortable living there. Our property is in danger now that it's in public view by anybody who wants to see everything that we own that's in our yards and all that sort of thing. And that was never the case before, because we had a dirt road and all this property around us that kept us pretty well hid back. We are landlocked. We have to use the road in the housing development that's been built to ingress and egress. And the secondary road that joins that is Hampton Ridge Road, where the Newport Fire Department is, if that helps anybody have the idea a little closer to where we are. And we have submitted a request for rezoning, and that's why we're here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Parrish, I apologize. This item, that specific rezoning is before the council tonight as a public hearing. So anyone who is here to speak about the 540 and 549 Russellwood Way rezoning, if you wait until public hearing, you can speak as long as you would like, as opposed to just 2 minutes. So I believe next up is Thomas, is it Bach? Okay, all right. I also noticed that there are several people here who live on Clara Street. That is a rezoning. If you would like, if you are here for that particular rezoning that we are doing tonight and want to speak then, we can skip you now. That was Maritza Ramos and Jose Guerra. You like us to wait? Okay. Ms. Mobley, I believe you could speak at the public hearing if you would prefer. All right. Christine Baldizzi, maybe I misspelled it. Nope, nope, all right. Harry Dest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the council. I am here tonight to ask the council to amend a contract that the Public Defender Office has with the 4 municipalities for a municipal court attorney position. I believe you have that contract in your packet. To give you a little history as to how we arrived at this particular contract, I want to bring the County Council up to speed on what this position is. As you know, we represent people not only in felony general sessions court and misdemeanor court in county courts, we also represent people in municipal courts. In 2015, the South Carolina General Assembly enacted a law that requires the municipalities to fund indigent defense attorney positions. And they can do that one of 2 ways. One way would be if the particular municipality funds the position themselves, or basically has them part of the municipal court position or court system. The other way, according to the law, is for the municipalities to enter into an agreement with the circuit defender of that circuit. Of course, I am the circuit public defender here in the 16th Circuit, and back in 2015, we entered into a contract with the 5 municipalities for 1 attorney position to be funded by those 5 municipalities. However, the way the contract was structured was that particular attorney position would be a attorney with the York County Public Defender Office. We felt that would be the best way to structure it. That's the way I wanted to structure it. That's the way the municipalities wanted to structure it. So we, in 2015, created a municipal court attorney position to handle all 5 municipalities. In 2018, it became apparent to me in looking at the raw data that the Rock Hill City caseload had increased at such a rapid rate that 1 attorney could not handle all 5 municipalities. So in 2018, under the law, I entered into another contract with the City of Rock Hill, where the City of Rock Hill funded that position. However, that new attorney was an attorney, or is an attorney, of the York County Public Defender Office. Because we restructured that contract, it left the other 4 municipalities having to fund the other position. Now, in the original contract, The funding was based upon the caseload of each municipality for that given year. But since we changed the structure of the contract, it left a deficit of $40,000, which would have been the Rock Hill contribution. In fiscal year 18-19, what we did was we took some money from the state carry-forward money, which of course goes to the county every year. All of our money from the Public Defender Office goes directly to York County, since York County is the administrative agency or the administrative county for our circuit. And of course, I apprised the county officials of this, and we agreed that we would take that carry-forward money and apply it to that $40,000 deficit. Again, not asking for York County to chip in. That money was carry-forward money from the state agency for that fiscal year, with the understanding that this year we would try to renegotiate that attorney position with the other 4 municipalities. I'm happy to say that Mr. Madden and former County Manager Shanahan was aware of this. I talked to the other 4 municipalities, the city managers of all 4 of those municipalities, and we entered into an agreement, which is what you have here before you. So essentially what it is that we amended the original contract. We have a separate contract with Rock Hill where they fund an attorney position, but it is a York County Public Defender employee. We now have another municipal attorney position, and that attorney handles the other 4 municipalities. We changed the contribution formula by basically taking an average of the last 3 years' caseload and based their contribution on that. And that's the exhibit that you have attached to the contract. There still, however, is a $20,000 deficit. What we worked out with the 4 municipalities was that they would contribute $5,000 apiece to that $40,000 deficit, leaving obviously $20,000 to make up for this next fiscal year. I had proposed with Mr. Shanahan and of course Mr. Madden that we take carry forward money that we received this past fiscal year, which was around $23,000 from the state. Again, the carry forward money is not appropriated money. It's not money that reoccurs every year. It's just money that the agency, the state agency had that sends out to all public defender offices when there's an excess. And so I had suggested that we use that $20,000 this year, again, to apply it to this contract with the understanding that next fiscal year, when we renegotiate the contract, that they're going to have to make up the municipalities, the 4 municipalities will have to make up that $20,000 deficit. Quite candidly, I felt that it was fair because some of the municipalities like York and Clover, that was a big hit in 1 year to make that up. So we felt that a gradual implementation of the new format based upon the state money that was available would be equitable for all parties involved, and of course would not cost the county any additional money whatsoever. So that's a long explanation for a contract, but I certainly wanted the council members to know that we've worked very hard to get to this point, to negotiate a way forward, which A, would not add any additional cost to the county, but B, would fill their obligation under the law, and C, keep zealous and meaningful representation in summary courts, particularly municipalities in this county, which I'm very proud to say I think we do a very good job of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Consent agenda. I am going to, at the request of council members, remove items number 36, which is now old business number 3, and item 44, which will now be new business number 10. Are there any other matters anyone would like removed from the consent agenda? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve as amended.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Public hearing, number 1, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing, case number 19-16, tax map 738-0000-077 to rezone from RD2 to LI. 12.71 acres located at Hare Road in Fort Mill. Is there anyone against? Is there anyone in favor? Feel free to come up one at a time and tell us your thoughts.
Good evening. My name's John Fight. I'm at 3431 Richards Crossing in Fort Mill. I'm the petitioner that requested the rezoning. I'm looking at a possible future area to place a business. I have no current plans, but I do plan on at some point in time of placing a business there that would require the LI, and basically came to the meeting to answer any questions or if anyone has any comments.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Is anyone else in favor? Anyone in favor who'd like to speak? Let me phrase it that way. How about that?
Bill Hare, 2040 Hare Road, Fort Mill, South Carolina. This, one of the family members just will say we support the rezoning of the property. That's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor who would like to speak?
Move to close.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Number 2, rezoning action, hold public hearing, case number 19-17, tax map number 670-00-00-068, to rezone from UD to RC2, 0.26 acres located at 1419 Clara Street in Rock Hill. Is anyone against? Is anyone in favor?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, it passes. Or ends public hearing, excuse me. Rezoning action, hold public hearing, case number 19-18, tax map numbers 543-0000-053 and 543-0000-106, to rezone from RUD to RD2, 17.53 acres located at 540 and 549 Russellwood Way, Rock Hill. Is there anyone against? Is there anyone in favor? Please feel free to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Mark Van Dyne. I'm with McAdams Company, representing the petitioners, Century Communities, and Drew Rouser and Robert Miller. I just have a few items on this petition for the rezoning of the property called Ryan Estates Phase 2. You notice from the map, Ryan Estates, as Mr. Parrish mentioned earlier, is off of Hampton Ridge Road. Phase 1 of this development is currently under construction. It's 61 single-family lots, and this would be a Phase 2 that encompasses 2 properties, kind of landlocked in the rear of Phase 1 community, and it is 41 single-family lots. Phase 1 of Ryan Estates was, as I mentioned, is currently under construction. It was rezoned in, it was rezoned in 2017 from RUD to RD2 CD. Voluntary conditions were imposed by the council, and we're proposing the same conditions for the Phase 2 development. And as I mentioned, it is 61 single-family lots. Phase 2 is also going to be a voluntary rezoning with conditions. The use, these conditions, which match Phase 1, that the use must be single-family residential. The minimum home size is 2,000 square feet. All homes must be single-family detached, and all homes must be stick-built. Just want to touch briefly on the land use plan. This is in the community center. It's kind of on the outer edge of the community center. And one of the uses prescribed or allowed in the community center as a residential option is a detached patio home. It also fits with the surrounding uses with the subdivision to the north and phase 1 of Ryan Estates. I have a master plan, some of the highlights for our plan. Again, it's 41 lots. We're showing we have 41, almost 42% tree save. Required tree save is 20%, and about 40% open space, and the required is 20%. If you notice, on the perimeter buffer, all the tree save is happening on the edge, up against the creeks in the perimeter of the property, screening from adjacent properties. And just a few sample elevations. These won't be the exact elevations, but kind of give a feel for the character of the community. And then the last point, the petitioner agreed just to make sure everybody was aware of this petition, this rezoning, held a voluntary community meeting. 29 notification letters were mailed. On the map, all the areas that are kind of highlighted with a little bit of green were sent notifications of this rezoning. The community meeting was held. 5 property owners attended, including one of the property owners for the site that's being redeveloped. There was some good dialogue, nothing big. I think some concerns about some of the buffers and where the roads were going to connect, which were answered. And there's a list of those who attended the community meeting there. And I think that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Sharon Mobley. Thank you for letting me speak to you. The only thing that I have to ask is that the conditions would be removed. The conditions are imposed on the zoning for these people to be able to build are not practical. They're not possible. They're not going to do any good. We spoke with engineering, and engineering has to admit that the things that they've asked for is not going to help. So we're asking that those conditions be removed and that the zoning go through and that you will allow myself and my brother to sell our property and to leave. We still want to stay in York County. We'd just like to be out further. We thought we'd always be in the country. We had no idea that the building around us was going to happen. We wouldn't have took our parents' land had we known, but we do know now, and we're asking for those conditions to be removed.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Rezoning action, hold a public hearing, case number 19-19, UD rezoning project in District 5. Is there anyone against? Is there anyone in favor?
Motion to close. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Council to hold a public hearing and approve third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between York County, South Carolina, and River Park at 77 LLC with respect to certain economic development property in the county, whereby such property will be subject to certain payments in lieu of taxes and other matters related thereto. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against? Is there anyone here in favor? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, council members. I'm Dave Williams. I'm a principal with McCraney Property Company, and we are the developer of this project. And we'd like to thank you for for considering this request. These FELO agreements are extremely important and allow us to be competitive, not only in York County, but with North Carolina and other states. So again, thank you. These are extremely important incentives for our business.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Is there another motion?
Move to approve, third reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Cox?
I do have one comment. I know that I approved second reading on this, and the way that I approach these is to defer to the council member whose district this is in, because they have a better understanding of their district, a better knowledge of how this is going to work in their district, and I defer to them. I think the only thing that I would ask council to consider going forward is that, especially for projects like this, which are spec buildings that don't have the specifics tied to them, it seems to me that all of the money from the FELO ought to go to the general fund and not specifically have a portion of that go to the product development fund, simply because I believe that that we should only be moving those things into those funds that justify them. So that would be something that wouldn't affect the passage of this. It would simply redirect the funds and make sure that all of it is available to the general fund for general fund expenses, and it not be earmarked out. So I guess I'll make a motion to amend simply to redirect that 10% of the FELO money to the general fund.
Is there a second to Ms. Cox's amended motion to amend? There is not. It fails by failure to gain a second. The motion is still on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
Whose district is this?
Joel.
Joel.
Joel. Sorry. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Council to hold a public hearing and to approve third reading of an ordinance authorizing the sale of 1737 East View Road, Rock Hill, identified by tax map number 53500000149, to entertain an existing offer to purchase the parcel, to authorize the chairman to execute the contract of sale and deed, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against? Anyone in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Do we have a second motion?
Move to,
We're on item 6.
Yes.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Old business, council to approve second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between York County, South Carolina, and Paragon 782 LLC with respect to certain economic development property in the county, whereby such property will be subject to certain payments in lieu of taxes and other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Council to provide third reading of an ordinance authorizing the county's sale of its speculative building located in East York Industrial Park, located at 1725 Ginth Court, York, South Carolina 29745, described as a plus or minus 40,000 square foot industrial building on or about 11.6 acres, sold as is, where is, to Five Star Holdings LLC and identified by tax map numbers 400-000020, as is more particularly shown on the combination plat with part of parcel 400-000002, filed in the York County Register of Deeds, plat book 158 at page 368. With such sale evidenced by the purchase and sale agreement attached here too, approving the agreement and its execution, authorizing the chairman and other county officials to further execute such documents incident to the closing and sale of the property, including the deed for the property, providing for a public hearing, and providing for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
No, sir, unfortunately, you cannot. Is there a second on this?
I'll second it.
Second. Discussion, Mr. Winkler.
I'd just like to point out that we've looked at these numbers from this. Yes, there is we unfortunately are selling it for less than what it costs to build it. But I'd just like to point out that the taxpayers, are not, that there's I won't say there's no loss, I think there's a minimal, our treasurer can tell us, but I think it was less than $40,000 that the county may share in any of that. The rest of it was grant money that,
York County itself, the general fund is being kept whole in the calculation. The loss is being shared by the other growth partners that contributed in the previous spec building, and those proceeds being rolled over. So the funds that York County put in specifically for the construction management company that was brought in, as well as the relocation of the pond, the general fund is being kept whole with those dollars.
thank you.
Can you give a exact figure?
Exact figure,
The county taxpayer deficit?
None.
We wouldn't have a deficit.
no deficit for the county's general fund. The county's general fund will get back $73,444. That was the expense associated to the retention pond being moved. $147,000 with the construction management company. That goes back in the general fund unassigned from the proceeds. The York County Economic Development Product Fund, that again, y'all control, and it's part of the general fund, but it's in a committed category, $685,000, $70.81. The growth partners are eating the loss, specifically in the one that I've done the math on the spreadsheet on, York Electric is about $350,000 at York Electric is losing in the money that they're getting back out of this. The rest of the growth partners, that money, those proceeds are rolling forward what's left of those proceeds in the York County Economic Development Product Fund. Does that make sense?
Well, you know, whether it's a grant or whatever, in the end, it's taxpayer money, so that's what I was trying to, I think I hear you're saying that grants are gonna cover some of the loss, but.
The overall loss is a little less than $700,000, and ultimately, to your point, Dr. Blackwell, the citizens of York County, whether or not they're a York co-op member, whoever that's where the funds ultimately did come from. The idea of this spec building, again, was to generate more economic development. This was not a good location. Hindsight's always 20/20.
I second in this motion because it's time to cut the bleeding off. This is not, in my mind, if we don't sell it for something, then the taxpayers are out all of it. And at this point, there's nothing to move forward with. I wish this council would quit giving incentives to spec buildings. I wish that this council would consider quit incentivizing and putting into this product development fund that this group controls money that needs to go to the general taxpayer. And I understand and appreciate our treasurer's point. I think it's splitting hairs. At the end of the day, there was $2.2 million spent on this building, and they sold it for 1.6, and apparently that's the most we're ever gonna get out of this. And either we sell it to a private entity and start making tax money on it, or we continue to hold it and it's costing us money. So I don't like it. I have made a motion before that wasn't even seconded by this council for discussion, which is troubling to me that we can't learn from mistakes. But I'm not willing to cut my nose off to spite my face, and I think seconding this motion is what is best for the taxpayers in order to move forward and to get over what I think was a very, very bad mistake.
Mr. Roddy.
Quick question to Mr. Madden. Wasn't some of these proceeds from the previous sale that we just reinvested in this particular product?
Yes, sir. A significant amount rolled forward from the previous spec building that had been sold into this spec building. Yes, sir.
So, and to clarify your point, money that we've rolled over and invested, York County taxpayer dollars that we've put into these previous products, we're gonna be made whole. We're not losing anything, we're not gaining anything. We're coming back with the same exact dollar figure that we've put in and rolled over.
to make sure I'm clear as I can with this, there's approximately $220,000 that came out of the general fund for this new spec building, okay? The previous spec building, you had money that came in from various growth partners that contributed in there about a little more than $2 million, okay, that we sold, and we actually, I think, made a little money off of that spec building. Then that rolled into this one, and this one we lost. We're first and foremost, the way the calculation is going, we're keeping the general fund whole with the $220,000. That comes off the top before the loss is being split out. York Electric Co-op wants to reinvest their portion of the remainder in their area they provide, okay? So that's the calculation that I've sent to everybody. York Electric, the gross amount they had invested was $793. They're gonna walk away with $446. The remainder of those proceeds are going to go into the Economic Development Fund. That's part of the general fund that, again, y'all control and y'all have say-so over how that money is invested. That money, which is carried over the previous spec building, did take a hit, did take a loss. Those dollar amounts did not come from, let's say, a millage levied for general fund operations. Those dollars came from the various organizations that contributed to the first spec building.
And I'll just make this comment, and I know no one loves to see any business venture or any project loses money. But first and foremost, we're here to protect York County's dollars. If York Electric or York Co-op wants to sink money, lose money, put money here, there, that's not for us to control. So I don't look at it as the taxpayers' dollars when York Co-op spends money or invests money and they don't get a return on it. In some cases, they lose on it. That's not for us to feel sorry about or to, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If opportunity comes up that we think is right, I think we are York County because we've sometimes you take chances and sometimes they pay off and sometimes they don't. And I think that's part of management. And like Christy said, we can learn from some of our mistakes and do better the next time. But I don't think we should stop pursuing economic development because if we do, we'll become the next county over that can't get anybody, that don't have any jobs, that don't have any economic growth. So I don't think one misstep should control our whole future going forward. So let's keep that in mind. Let's don't get gun shy when we see a good thing. Let's don't be scared to pull the trigger, but also be mindful of the resources that it takes to make these projects happen and the benefit of when they do become successful. We've had many projects throughout York County over the years which have paid huge dividends. And I don't think one project failure should be indicative of, our economic development strategy. So I just wanted to reiterate that, if York Electric takes a hit, that's not on York County Council, that's not on any millage, that's not on anything that we've taken from the taxpayers, that's York Co-op investing their dollars.
Can I ask one question? Can you tell us how much funds are supposed to be or going to the product development fund as a result of the sale?
The product development fund is going to have $685,000 put back into that fund. Again,
Okay.
it's money that y'all as a council.
How much did you say?
$685,070.81.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to amend to require that the $685,000 go to the general fund, since the decision-making on that ought to go to all of the taxpayers, and make an amendment to that effect.
Can I clarify?
No. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second for discussion because
Second for discussion. Ms. Cox.
I think the whole purpose of this is that the group that's making these decisions, I think that this is one way for us to learn our lesson. I think this money should go to the general fund. It should be for use for general taxpayer needs, and I don't think that it should be earmarked for product development. I think that the way that we do that is we start holding ourselves accountable by making sure that that money doesn't go there. And that's the reason I think that we ought to be considering that.
Mr. Winkler.
I'll just speak to that with my mind on that. One part of the agreement in the sale from the growth partners who gave these grants is that for forgiving some of the grant money is that the money go back into the product development fund, which the 7 of us sitting up here control 100%, just like we control the general fund. There's not a dollar spent out of that product development fund without the 7 of us voting on it. Matter of fact, the last reading of the budget, we voted to spend some money out of that fund to pay for the Charlotte Regional Partnership business and for a couple of other funds that product development was looking for. We voted to do that. We control that, just like we control the general fund. Again, I don't like it. This is in my district. This is a spec building that was before I was ever here. Previous councils voted to build it, and I'm glad we got somebody spending some money on it and can start paying a few tax dollars on it to put a few dollars back into the York School District. They can use all the tax dollars they can get in the York School District. So I support it. I would love to have gotten $4 million off of it, but it's not gonna happen where it's at and what it is. So again, we can continue to sit on it, pay to maintain it, and probably, if it's like most empty buildings, allow it to continue to deteriorate with nobody in it doing anything in it, or we can sell it tonight and start collecting some tax dollars off of it and let some people start putting a few people to work in it, and start putting some money back into the general fund off the tax dollars.
Mr. Hamilton.
Well, I am still the new guy here, but perhaps I'm misunderstanding. My understanding of the Special Project Fund, maybe you can correct me, is that those funds actually are a part of the general fund and are uncommitted funds?
Correct. If I'd make a recommendation, Ms. Cox's motion be amended to say general fund unassigned. Your fund balance has got various buckets. The unassigned is not earmarked for anything. The economic development bucket is part of the general fund that's committed for economic development. Again, committed is still controlled by y'all. I might be splitting hairs here, but it's in the general fund. Both of them are still within the general fund. One is simply unassigned, available to be spent on whatever it is y'all might desire. The other one is committed by council for economic development. Y'all can at any point in time take it out, decide whatever you're gonna do else with it, but both are within the general fund. The $220,000 that I mentioned before for the construction management company, as well as relocation of the retention pond, that came out of general fund regular tax dollars, and so that's earmarked to go back in the unassigned. The remainder portion right now is earmarked to go in the general fund in the economic development committee category. What I believe Ms. Cox is wanting to do is to make that general fund unassigned as well.
I think that would be appropriate, and I would make the motion to amend it to reflect that, since it allows us to move forward with that without causing problems with the potential sale.
Mr. Hamilton, do you accept her amendment to her amendment on the motion?
Frankly, I think we're kind of splitting hairs. I think the funds are unassigned, where they are, and we're not losing control over it. They're taxpayer funds that we still get to vote on as council either way. So I think we're arguing over vocabulary.
I don't intend to continue the debate, but because I understand the council spoken, but I do think there is a difference when you have a group that's deciding where the money's going and making recommendations to this council. It's not splitting hairs. We all know how politics works. And to me, this is how you address it on the front end instead of having that problem on the back end.
Your attempt to amend, unless it picks up a second from Mr. Hamilton, will fail on the technical where it would go back into the general fund. All right, that is off the table. Mr. Roddy.
I want to make a comment or question directed to Mr. Madden. When we're talking about the $685,000, those funds didn't come out of the general fund, correct? Only the 220 that you just spoke of came from the general fund. And by putting this money back into the economic development product bucket, this would keep them from having to come back and go through some procedural steps with us. No, I said that wrong. We need to keep funding our economic development product fund, because unless we're just saying we're not going to do these type projects or invest money into economic development, because we've done some things in the past to make sure that certain percentages of what we're doing is invested into economic development, correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't agree. Well, she didn't get a second on the motion, so I'm not going to argue the point.
Second on the amendment.
On the
amendment to the amendment.
To put it back to the general fund. I think it should go back into
economic development.
Mr. Black?
You know, I appreciate the points that Ms. Cox is making. I was trying to make some of those points myself, but with this at the stage it's in, I think that's a future consideration. I don't want to deal with any issues with the growth partners or just having, it still goes in the same pot. It's just I don't want to title on the money in that section to cause any grief right now. I don't, in midstream, I don't think, I'm not supporting it. But, and I'll go ahead and say my piece on the other part too. Just to give a history lesson, when I started on the council, there were no jobs anywhere. Developers could not finance spec buildings. The only way that we could start a spec building was to build it ourselves. And that's what got the county in the business. We had great success until this one. And I'm not going to sit here and say, I told you so, but my position was, I don't think this is a good location. But I just said, well, maybe I'll be proven wrong. But in this case, I wasn't proven wrong. And this is another factor when we get over toward the P3 discussion. I understand York Co-op was kind of moving this motivation a little bit to do this against my better judgment, but they do so much and we work so well with them, I politely express myself and step aside. But I think we need to remember our history lesson. I don't think, and we got involved, like I said, because nobody else would, nobody else could. I think we need to kind of hopefully continue to drift out of it, but in that regard, I agree with Mr. Roddy. We don't want to totally turn the faucet off if it's going to help us one way or the other. So that's my piece, and I'll be quiet.
Ms. Cox has a motion, an amendment to the motion on the floor. All those in favor of Ms. Cox's motion not to return the funds to the Product Development Fund, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Oh, sorry, no.
The amendment fails. We are back to the original motion. Would anyone else like to? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion passes. We are now at old business number 3, which is number 36 from consent. Council to approve second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a First Amendment to the fee in lieu of tax and incentive agreement between York County, South Carolina, the county, and Elcom Silicones USA Corp., a company previously identified as Project Delta Ivory, to provide for certain special source credits in connection with additional investment in certain manufacturing and related facilities in the county and other matters relating thereto.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
36.
Page 16.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Winkler?
Just like to point out, as was mentioned earlier about jobs, this is a additional $10.8 million investment by this company and 50 additional jobs with an average salary of $67,688 a year. So this is not $10 an hour jobs that we're doing for this one here.
Sir, I'm afraid you cannot. Ms. Cox?
One of the things that bothered me, and I think that I'd like to see that we do, is that this particular, the first reading of this was done in October of 2018. And so we've sat for almost 9 months and not had any review by there's a totally new Economic Development Committee. And I'm not sure of the delay, but this is to me something that ought to be reviewed once again by the Economic Development Committee before we move it to second reading, given the time span. I just think that's too long, and I think that there should be an explanation. And since there is an opportunity for third reading, I would hope that we have some information brought forward to us by the director as to why this was. I've requested that the information be put in there about when this was first approved, because it just doesn't, to me, I don't think it's transparent. And I think it causes problems from the public being involved to wait that long before you have second reading. But I'll support it until we get to third reading.
Mr. Blackwell,
I think she just answered my question.
there you are.
But, so you're saying you want it to go back to committee before it comes for third reading?
I think we owe it to the citizens to do that.
So is that a part of an amended motion, or?
I think we have a meeting coming up. I don't know that we need to formally do that, but I think we can add it to our committee meeting if
I will
Robert's
say
willing.
this, I will commit, since I helped set the agenda, that this will be, that the Economic Development Committee will have opportunity to hear this prior to third reading.
Fair enough.
We'll wait. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion passes.
Forty-four.
Nope.
New business, number 1, page 27 for those following along at home. Council to consider recalling the animal control ordinance, which was referred to the Public Works Committee on June 3, 2019. I was asked by members of the Public Works Committee to put this on the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we put it on the agenda.
There we go. Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Put it on this agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah.
It will be the next,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, okay.
It's being recalled from the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason why I made the motion to put it on the, made the motion for us to go ahead and take care of this business tonight. I'm the chairman of the Public Works Committee. We had a Public Works Committee meeting on June 14th, on a Friday. During that meeting, during that time, Animal Control Director Bobby Comer was going through the ordinance, mentioning some of the revisions she would like to make and some of the language she would like to change. And we come across section 5519, which talked about the restraint mechanisms and how tethering is being enforced or not being allowed. At that time, me being the chairman of the Public Works Committee in 2012, I said, hold up, that's not what we voted on. There's a discrepancy in what we told the citizens and what actually made the black and white copy. So at that time, I instructed staff to go back and pull the minutes from the meeting, audio, video, anything that we had from that night. We went back and pulled we didn't have the video, but we had the audio. And I like to share this audio of the council discussion which includes Dr. Blackwell, Assistant County Manager now David Harmon, and at the time, County Manager Jim Baker, in answering questions of the citizens of what would be permissible if York County approved this ordinance. And so it's only like a 1.5-minute clip. I'd like to play the audio of what we told citizens and the conditions that they would be allowed to do if we pass this ordinance, which we passed unanimously. Knowing the conditions on council and what we told citizens, I'll let you guys take a listen to the clip.
You may want to point out about the video, it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, yeah. The reason why we only have the audio is because we don't have the video anymore. I think they purge those from the system every so often, but we were lucky enough to have the audio of what we told the citizens back in 2012 that would be permissible if we passed the ordinance in 2012.
Okay, what about?
Can we get some audio?
Are they going away too?
You just answer your second one. Yes, you can tether your dog if you have a fenced enclosure.
Tether it on the chain if you have a fence.
David, is that?
Okay, the ordinance does not state that. Can it be put into the ordinance?
David, it does
For
state
us
it,
call-
does it not?
No, it doesn't.
Or it just says you can still tether your dog.
It says by from.
I think he's going in the back to try to get some more audio, more volume.
For us common people.
I know we're gonna try to get the volume up.
Because I didn't read that as being in there.
I think, well, I think the way it's stated in it, with him saying it's silent on that, because it doesn't specifically say you can't do it, you can. So it's not, you're allowed to because you're not told you're not allowed to. I think that's what he means, I think it's silent on that. Yeah.
Okay, but like I said, that trolley system, please take it into consideration. That most people, that's what they're gonna do, run to the Lowe's or the Walmart, buy a trolley system, and there's gonna be more loose dogs. There's gonna be more problems.
I thought
Yeah, what you're talking about is you can use a trolley for your primary, or you can use a fence for your primary. You can use additional methods besides that. So as long as the fence is your primary and it's secure enough to contain the animals, then you could also tether.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know if y'all could make it.
What about 10 by 10 kennels? Are they going?
Are y'all still not able to hear it?
You just, answer your second one. Yes, you can tether your dog if you have a fenced enclosure.
Tether it on the chain if you have a fence.
David, is that?
Okay, the ordinance does not state that. Can it be put into the ordinance?
David, it does
For
state
us
it, does it not?
It does.
Or it just says you can still tether your
It
dog.
says by law.
A trolley system will get the primary intention restraint, that if you're using a chain inside of a fence, then that's still allowed, the ordinance is silent on that, that is still allowed.
Can it be put in there more specific for us common people? And I would say that, because I didn't read that, it's been in there.
I think,
Well, let's,
I think the way it's stated in it, with him saying it's silent on that, because it doesn't specifically say you can't do it, you can. So it's not, you're allowed to because you're not told you're not allowed to. I think that's what he means, I think it's silent on that.
yeah.
Okay, but like I said, that trolley system, please take it into consideration. That most people, that's what they're gonna do, run to the Lowe's or the Walmart, buy a trolley system, and there's gonna be more loose dogs. There's gonna be more problems.
I thought
Yeah, what you're talking about is you can use a trolley for your primary, or you can use a fence for your primary. You can use additional methods besides that. So as long as the fence is your primary and it's secure enough to contain the animals, then you could also tether.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I want to try to, we can turn the mics down a little bit now. I want to try to explain what you just heard. You heard Dr. Blackwell saying, yes, you can tether your dog if it's inside of a fence. What you heard David Harmon say is that since the ordinance doesn't specifically speak to it, it's silent on it, which tells you you can't do it, which means that you still can do it. And what you heard Jim Baker at the time, which was the county manager, state, was that you could still tether your dog if it was inside of a fence. That's what all 6 present council members were told that would be an acceptable condition if we pass that ordinance. We passed that ordinance 6-0 unanimously. So we were all under the expectation that this would be a permissible condition. What didn't happen was those conditions didn't make the black and white copy. That's where the dispute comes up when you look at the black and white copy and you hear what York County told its citizens and what council was under the impression that could take place. So at that point in the meeting, when I instructed staff to go back and pull video, audio, minutes, and everything, someone left the meeting and said, York County's reintroducing chaining. That was not the case. The question was, did we not tell citizens in 2012 that if we passed this ordinance, that you would still be able to do these activities if certain conditions were met? And those conditions were, you had to have food, water, shelter. The chain could only be a certain percentage of the dog's weight. The chain had to be a certain length. The collar had to be made of a certain material with a swivel on it. Those were all the conditions that were set forward in order to be met to be able to tether your dog with a chain if all those conditions were met. That's what we all walked away with, and that's up until 2019, that's what council was left thinking, until we actually went back and the ordinance was gonna be updated, that we discovered that this language that we said did not make the black and white copy. That's what the whole big dispute is about. It's not about York County reintroducing chaining. It's the principle of if we told citizens that we would permit this, if we pass this ordinance, how do we fix this or how do we move forward? And I've spoken with the interim county manager, and he's communicated to me that since it's not in black and white,
We cannot allow citizens to use the tether by the chain, which we told them. So at this point, what I've asked staff to do, I've kind of expressed to everyone who's involved, is that we need to apologize to citizens because we made a mistake, because the language didn't make the ordinance that we told citizens they would be allowed to do. And we had people who tethered their dog who supported the ordinance. We had people who were with animal rights groups, rescue groups who supported the ordinance, and 6 unanimous council members voted to support those conditions. Now, 7 years later, in 2019, we discovered that it didn't make the ordinance, and so we can't do anything about it unless one of us 7 would like to add those conditions into the ordinance, in which we all know it would not fly this day and time because the makeup of this council has changed, and some people who've been, whether they've been heavily influenced or bullied into not putting it in. But I think it's based on principle that if we told you, the citizens, that you would be allowed to do this, and we all voted on it, and we all supported it, that we should at least acknowledge that we made a mistake. And that's the big hoopla of all the dog talk in York County. And if it comes from no one but myself, I would like to apologize to the community for this not being permitted at this time. Because we told you, staff told us, and everyone was under the impression that those would be the conditions that you could still tether your dog. Whether some like it or not, and we have 3 attorneys up here, and if they all went to court, and if their client received 7 years on any kind of prison term, and they made a mistake and made 70, you best believe the 3 attorneys will be back in court and saying, hey, we have the audio and the video that says you only gave my client 7 years or not 70, and they would correct it. So I'm apologizing to York County for our staff's mistake. There's nothing we can do about it now, so we're just gonna move forward, and hopefully everyone accepts what we have, and whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, if someone wants to reintroduce the option to tether your dog inside of a fence by using a chain, then they're more than welcome to it. But I don't think we will get this council, even if I made the motion to do it today, we still wouldn't get 3 other council members to support it. Even though we passed this ordinance based on those principles, I think with all the speculation of chains and dog fighting and whatever, we wouldn't get it passed today. So I'm not gonna kid myself to think that if I made a motion to allow this, that it would go through. It wouldn't go through. And I'm saying it wouldn't go through, not because someone up here wouldn't support it. I think they wouldn't support it because of the political pressures. So at this time, I'm making my apologies to the citizens of York County on behalf of this council and the staff that we did not include that language that we told you that you would be permissible to tether your dog inside of a fence on a chain. So
Let me,
Are your comments germane to?
I was gonna, that was my comment.
I took the,
Let Mr.
yeah.
Crowley have some extra time there, but unless someone has a comment germane to the motion, I would ask that you save it for the next one, because the motion, the ordinance coming up. All those in favor of recalling the animal control ordinance out of the Public Works Committee, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Good grief.
Mr. Chairman, would you please read all of that into the record, sir?
The worst part is I have to read it 2 more times after this. Council to consider first reading to amend the Code of the County of York, South Carolina, Chapter 55, Animals, in order to amend Section 55.01 to amend the definitions of adequate shelter, cat, dangerous animal, livestock, public nuisance, stray, and sustenance. Remove the definition of vicious dog, add definitions of animal hoarding and free-roaming cat to amend Section 55.15 to remove the power of officials to destroy pets and specify the power of animal control officers to enter private exterior property to investigate violations. To amend Section 55.16 to prohibit animal hoarding and require waste cleanup. To amend Section 55.19 to revise the restraint requirement and tethering requirements and lawful passive restraint options, restrict passive restraint collars, require confinement for unspayed female dogs, remove waste cleanup, and specify a minimum area for kennels and fences. To amend Section 55.21 to prohibit dogs and livestock from running at large. change vicious dog to dangerous dog, remove private impounding of livestock, provide authority to send unclaimed animals to rescue, allow the animal control supervisor or designee to determine the disposition of identifiable animals. To amend Section 55.22 to require compliance with the owner surrender program, to amend Section 55.23 to amend the restraint requirements for hunting and working dogs, to amend Section 55.25 to specify the conditions of abandonment, prohibit intentionally poisoning animals, and allow animal control officers to seek removal and care orders under South Carolina Code annotated Section 47.1-150, to amend Section 55.26E to require proper disposal of dead animals, to amend Section 55.31 to require a timely pickup of sterilized animals, to amend Section 55.32 to allow the animal control supervisor or designee to determine a suitable placement for an adoptee, and to provide for post-adoption home visits, to amend the fees for impounding, boarding, and microchipping animals.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? Mr. Winkler, you get first shot at it.
I'll be very brief, just that animal control supervisor and the county manager and public works all recommended this, and I've heard from many of the citizens out there that they support it, and so make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
excuse me, just as a point of order on the title, there are 2 additional sentences due to our software system that didn't carry over, to add owner surrender fees, to provide for a special adoption program, to provide for a public hearing, to provide for other matters relating thereto.
We amend the motion to adopt those.
Michael, does he have to reread the whole thing?
No, sir.
Now, you remember what you used to do to me?
Mr.
Vaguely.
Winkler is amended, and Mr. Roddy accepts the amendment. There we are. We're on track. Your turn, Dr. Blanker. If you'd like to read it again, though, you're free to try.
No, I'm enjoying the pleasure of listening to somebody else read it. But, you know, I appreciate Bobby's hard work in animal control. She's doing a great job. I appreciate Mr. Roddy's passion. I mean, it was always easy to keep him as chair of that committee because he was dedicated and passionate. I do want to, since I was the only other person there, I just want to kind of give the atmosphere at the time. We spent about a year dealing with this, and we got a lot of great pressure, and that's what we take. You can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. But at the time, there was a lot of debate about chaining dogs and complaints about that, and then the enforcement officers talking about, and me pointing out, I guess, among others, how do you weigh a dog when you look over the fence versus the weight of the chain and the ratio combination and all that is involved. So we realized the trolley tethering system was a humane, great way to go. Mr. Roddy's correct. He played the tape. I wish we did have the video. But in all honesty, I think the council was totally burned out. The staff was totally burned out. And we were happy with the tethering solution and the chaining situation. We kind of just assumed that would disappear. But per Mr. Roddy's excellent point, it's not clearly stated. So if we have to go back in there to refine it again, I would be fine with that, but I'm at just the will of the council in that regard.
I do want to point out that during 2012, there were multiple dog attacks throughout York County. We all remember the incident that happened here in York. I think the gentleman was, if my memory serves me correctly, I think he was out putting up Christmas lights or something, and there was a dog attack with a young kid who basically put him in a coma, about peeled his scalp back. So we were seeing a lot of this going on several years ago. And one of the concerns was the dogs were getting out. You know, if a property owner can keep his animal on his property, he can't bite anybody unless someone goes into the backyard or into the area where the dog is. But when a dog gets out, you know, you may not have a vicious dog. You may have a normal dog, but any dog can attack at any time. And we talk about the use of a tether with a chain. State law doesn't even prohibit that. But York County's ordinance is taking great steps beyond what the state requires or what the state says, with a huge portion of its
of this ordinance. So we've taken proper steps to look out for the welfare of animals. You know, people that say we don't do enough. I say compare our ordinance to any other county in the state, or even up against some of the state regulations. We've taken tremendous steps to look out for the welfare of the animals. When you look at the weight of the chain, the type of collar, the swivel that we require to be on, the food and shelter. We know people have their outside dogs, and not everyone has a inside home pet. Some dogs are outside dogs, and it would be ultra humane if we said everybody just put your dogs in the house, let them eat from the table, sleep in the bed, do all that. That would be the ultimate thing for some people, and some people do that now. But we shouldn't expect everyone to take those measures, because some dogs, let's face it, they're not all rainbows and unicorns. We have some vicious dogs out there, and York County's not in the business of telling people you can't own these type dogs, but we are in the business of making sure that we keep our public safe, because if you own a vicious dog, I do not want that dog to leave your property to attack me, my son, my family members, or anyone just out in the community. So I think for those who think York County haven't done enough, we've done a tremendous amount in looking out for the welfare of animals, and at the same time, we want to make sure we protect the public. And we do have to go through this 2 more readings, so if anyone objects to what we're doing or supports what we're doing, we certainly welcome the comments, but we don't want to go through another year or 9 months like we did back in 2012. But I think if you ultimately read this ordinance that we put in place in 2012, despite what wasn't put in, we have a pretty solid ordinance. And it gained the support of those who were on the inside or outside of the issue for York County. So hopefully we'll move forward, and everyone knows how this council in York County feels about its animals and pets going forward.
Any other discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
So I believe that historically York County has not done enough for animals. I believe that we have neglected our animal control. I believe we've looked at it as public safety and not animal welfare. Bobby Comer has been at the shelter now for exactly 1 year, and during that time, we've gone from a 40% save rate to a 94+ save rate. By passing this ordinance tonight, we are taking the next step in becoming an even better county at looking out for not just our animals, but for the people that work at animal control, the people who endure. They've got a very tough job. I mean, you know, there are days when they have to make hard decisions. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But what this ordinance does, approving this ordinance, gives the people that do that job our backing. They realize, you know what, York County Council is now going to back me up on the things that we feel like we need to do for animals. And it's not just about animals. It's about people and the safety of people, but it's also about, you know, I have to commend Bump. You know, we don't see eye to eye on the chaining issue at all. We're on 2 opposite ends of that chain. But if I were on this council and I made a decision and I sat through a council meeting and I found out years later that what I thought I had done, what I thought I had accomplished, had not been done, I would be just as upset as he has been for the past few weeks. So, you know, be thankful that you have council members that are passionate about things like that. You know, my passion is actually for the animals, and not that his is not. I'm not comparing me to him anymore. Okay. So what I'm saying is, when I got on this council, one of the check boxes that I wanted to mark was improving animal control. And so I'm glad that this council is now behind us on that. And these are kind of technical improvements. There's some cleaning up of the ordinance. There's some small technical things here. There's some big things. We passed the TNR. We've already passed that. You know, that is a huge difference for this county. And unless you deal with that on a daily basis or look at all of that going on a daily basis, you don't even realize maybe what this difference even means. And I want to just touch on something that I think is one of our primary issues. That's not an animal problem. It's not an animal control problem. It's a people and an owner problem. And the number of stray animals that we have in this county is tremendous. Every day I'm posting several animals. I try to just stick to Clover, but you know what? It's hard sometimes. But on my Facebook page, I post those lost and found animals. And gosh, that's a job in itself. But if the people of the county would care as much about their own animals as the people at Animal Control care about animals that don't even belong to them, that would be the next step in this process of being a better county for the animals. So just for everybody, you know, restraint is a great word, but you can have a dog in a house that gets out. I mean, I got a goat running loose in Clover today. How about that? You know, actually, Robert, that's in your district down at Henry's Knob. Okay. But so it doesn't really matter what the restraint is. The responsibility that comes along with that restraint and with taking care of those animals, that's a priority. So I fully support Bobby Comer. I think Animal Control has done an excellent job. I think they are working together. I think it's a positive atmosphere. And I regret that we've got 42 animals sitting there that were seized, that were on chains. I regret that. You know why? Because that's over 3/4 of our space. So one of the next big things I'm going to ask this council for is in next year's budget, we need more animal control space. So we're talking about impact fees. That's why I raised the question. This council has always looked at animal control as public safety. So if we pass impact fees, you know what? We need to apply some of that fee to the public safety of the people that we're holding these dogs, the type of dogs that we're holding. So I know I'm rambling now, but the point is we've come a long way, and we're going to take the next step tonight, I hope.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do have one comment.
Ms. Cox?
I think I would echo the fact of all the work that Bobby has done. It's just tremendous in the strides that we're making. I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for the committee for the work that they've done on this ordinance. I'm glad that we're going to move forward with this. I think it's a good thing for the county. I think it's a good thing for our pets. And I will echo the comment too. We had a conversation in the F&O meeting today about when discussion happens in decision-making like this, and someone makes a misstatement of what the ordinance says or what the law says, that some are expected to be asked the question before they will answer whether or not that ordinance reflects that. And I, for one, think that's a terrible policy, and I think that's what leads to what Bump is talking about. And I certainly hope that as long as I'm sitting up here, that our legal counsel and that our management knows that I want to hear if there is a statement that is made that is simply not true and that is not consistent with the ordinance. I expect that we hear that, and I expect that we have folks that have looked at it so that we don't have another situation like that. There's too much stuff that we're doing here today. There's too much time that we spend on it for us to get it wrong and for us to pass something we don't know what it is. In this case, it looks like we're making good strides, and I'm glad that we're moving forward.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Council to approve the amendment to agreement to fund municipal court attorney for 2019-2020 fiscal year.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion is approved. Council to approve ratification for additional funding of $80,000 for autopsy services performed by York Pathology Associates LLC of Rock Hill, South Carolina for use by the York County Coroner's Office.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Motion approved. Council to approve contract with Split Rock Studios in the amount of $994,351 for the exhibit for fabrication related to the new permanent exhibit at the Museum of York County.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Council to approve award regarding bid number 2620 for York County Heckle Complex renovation project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, J.M. Cope, Inc. of Rock Hill, for a total cost of $4,924,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, motion is approved. Council,
I'm a no on that one.
you're a no, 6-1.
On construction.
Council to approve contract with Catalyst Construction Company, Inc. of Charlotte, North Carolina for a total cost of $340,200 regarding the construction of a new permanent exhibit at the Museum of York County.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. Council to approve change order number 3 with Leitner Construction in the amount of $1,260,628 for the Moss Justice Center expansion project Phase 2.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion is passed. Consider approval of memorandum of agreement between South Carolina State Elections Commission and the Board of Voter Registration and Elections for York County for the new statewide voting system approved by the state of South Carolina and authorize its execution by the manager.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Winkler.
I'd just like to ask, I'm assuming, well, not really even assuming, it was in there, but I just want to make it clear. I forwarded an email, the Association of Counties recommended that we make sure that our legal counsel was good with this agreement because of some of the things it has in the agreement. And so since management recommended this, and I'm assuming our legal counsel and management are on board with it.
Yes, Mr. Winkler, if I may add, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
We have added a non-appropriation clause to the end of the agreement, which allows future councils to determine if the maintenance requirement is not needed for whatever reason, that can be withheld, and we would not be bound by the maintenance component that's in the agreement. Otherwise, everything in the agreement, the Elections Commission, voter registration and elections is already doing with the current machines.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, sorry, Dr. Black.
Everything that presently is being done, we'll just essentially just carry on with the addendum or amendment or whatever you put into the
Everything is currently being
MOU.
done. Yes, there is a anticipated additional cost to the maintenance and upkeep of the software that's needed to run the machines, and that's the component that we added the non-appropriation clause for.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Number 10 is number 44 from consent, which was page 21. Consider first reading by title only to an ordinance amending the code of the County of York to provide for the establishment of a public-private partnership structure for economic development pursuits in York County, to set out the county requirements for such a structure, to disestablish and dissolve the York County Economic Development Board, to approve an interlocal agreement with the York County Economic Development Partnership, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to defer.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion?
Who made the motion?
Robert. Mr. Winkler made the motion. It was seconded by Ms. Love. Dr. Blackwell.
Yes, sir. The deferral works a lot when it involves something new. We kind of got blindsided by it. We've been dealing with it. I was on the original committee with a couple of others that looked into this and studied it and evaluated it. Of course, I've changed my opinion of it at this time. I don't see the merit of delaying it because either we support it or we don't. I don't think it's appropriate to have our fine economic development director, Mr. Swenson, kind of floating in air about which way we're going to make the structure that he works under. But that's just my feeling about delaying this, deferring it.
Any other discussion?
I do.
Mr. Roddy.
You caught me with a piece of candy in my mouth. Go ahead.
Ms. Cox.
First of all, I want to say to David Swenson that I think you do a great job. And I always say that I don't appreciate any comments that are personally attacking. I think you've done a great job, and I think you're doing a great job. And for that reason, I don't see why we need to move forward with change, and I've made that known. I do, and I am in favor of a strategic plan, and I think it's one that I think our entire council should be involved in before we take any next step to do some complete change, since there were changes that were presented to us 2 years ago based upon that would be the best program. I don't think we need to be doing another one and going through that again without having a strategic plan that all of us are included in, it doesn't go to a committee, we're all doing this. This is too big of a change. But I agree with Councilman Blackwell in that this has been bounced around for a very long time. And the last I met, there were to be no changes in what is being proposed. And I don't mind being a lone vote. I do it when I think it's right, and I'm willing to do that. What frustrates me, though, is that as a conservative, I cannot fathom any realm where you would ever allow anyone to pay to sit on a board. That is exactly what our country is mad about. We're mad about decisions being made that aren't made for the best interest of the taxpayers. And there's probably 5 other reasons why I think this structure, which should be in an ordinance already, because what's being proposed, everybody already knows what it is. But that reason is probably the most important, is we cannot allow special interests to come in and to change how we approach, how we deal with this. So I think we need to vote on it. I think we need to give David Swenson direction as well. I don't think we should kick it down. I think we should just make the decision. If there's council members who support this and think that we should do that, that's fine. I'm also not in favor of requiring taxpayers to fund 94% of the budget, and they only get 55% of the representation. And to boot, 2 of them are dedicated folks who never get changed, and the other 4 are solely and exclusively picked by one person on this council. And I just think that's not something we should allow representation throughout the entire county. And based upon the discussions that I understand we've had, that is not something that will change under the proposal. So I believe that deferral is just kicking it down the road. I think we should go ahead and have a vote. And for that reason, I will not support deferral.
Any other discussion? Mr. Roddy?
I don't think it makes sense to defer it unless we're gonna have some type of new information, new workshops or something like that. But just to say we're gonna defer it because maybe the votes may or may not be there. If we're gonna have some workshops of further explanation of what we can do or how this further benefits York County, then I say defer it. But if not, let's make a vote and move on.
Any other discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
So I think that I'm on the fence on this, but I'm leaning toward not approving it. And I've met with members of the Economic Development Committee. I've met with David Swenson, York Electric Co-op. Who I have not met with are the constituents from my area and maybe other areas of the county who have not weighed in and do not know this is even happening. So I am concerned that this was tucked into the consent agenda tonight. I think that is I don't understand that. I know it's in name only, but I don't understand why we tuck something that's this big in a consent agenda. So I have concerns. My number one concern is that I don't believe that as an elected official, I should be giving the oversight of taxpayer dollars to anyone other than myself. I mean, if you give me $100 and I tell you in a week, well, I've given that to Mr. Roddy to look out for you, you're not going to be real happy with me. And you're not going to be real happy with me for not letting you know that was a possibility, that could happen. So I honestly do not think the community, I don't think the people of York County even know what we're talking about. So for that reason, what I would like to ask of our chairman is that we put this on our August workshop. We include this. I'm not talking about a full workshop. We've already had a full workshop. But I think that we should put this on the workshop. I think that those of us who have any question should be able to invite constituents who they feel like would like to weigh in on this. I would like to hear from them. There are people in my district who I think are very good business-minded people who I would like to hear from. I'm not going to speak on their behalf tonight. So I feel like this is a big decision. It is,
you know, it has pros and cons. And I don't know if the pros outweigh the cons or if the cons outweigh the pros. So, you know, when we have people on this council who are of different opinions, I would also like to hear from them. And I think the best place to do that is in a workshop where we can hash it out, we can talk about it, we can ask questions. You know, in this forum, I can't ask, Councilman Hamilton questions and Council Winkler questions and get their responses and go back and forth. We don't have that kind of time here. So in my opinion, the best option is to have a 30-minute, 45-minute open discussion at a workshop where the people that are opposed can not just a council workshop, but a workshop where we actually hear from people again. And before I can make a decision, I'm gonna need more information.
Dr. Blackwell.
You know, we've kind of knocked this around for a year. I guess it was about, I can't remember how many weeks or months ago, we did the resolution, which I supported, to move this forward. But there comes a time when you have to just kind of do your job, and I feel like we're essentially just passing the buck down the road to not deal with it tonight because it's gaining friction. But I don't see, after a year of this being, we've had the presentations, the one-on-ones with each council member, either we support it or we don't. I'm going to stick to the motion at hand and not give my many reasons why I decided this was not a good thing to do, but I have quite some concrete reasons for this not being a logical step for us to take, but I'm voting against the deferral.
I'll just say, I've got plenty of reasons for supporting it as well, and you've all heard most of them, but again, what we're talking about tonight is whether or not, at least at this point, is whether or not to defer this. And my motion was to defer, so I'll save those discussions for a future vote.
You defer something when it is not ready to be voted on, when it has not been hashed out enough and more information needs to be learned, or you haven't changed it enough to allow it to possibly pass. This may never pass, and I think we will certainly know it. And I will say this will not appear back on our agenda until it could be workshopped or have some sort of public forum so that the public can give input and ask questions and fully grasp what it is we're trying to accomplish and why. All those in favor of deferral say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
It is deferred by a vote of 4-3. Committee and other reports. Public Works Committee from Friday, June 14th. Mr. Roddy, I think you kind of gave us an update already, but.
I think we gave it at the previous council meeting as well. We had that Friday, and I think we had a meeting that Monday, so
All right.
we haven't done anything new.
Fair enough. Zoning Committee, Ms. Love.
So we met on Tuesday, June the 25th. Everyone was there and in good moods. We had a long agenda. So the things that we discussed were the zoning code and subdivision code rewrite. We discussed lot splits, phase 2. This is the second part of the road frontage that we had passed previously. We have some proposed changes for AGC and RUD zoning uses. We had a requested ordinance change for a small cell ordinance, which is something that allows the cell towers to be a little more, I just call it kind of a neater looking cell tower. We discussed small area plans and which ones were the most important. We tried to kind of prioritize those and discuss what would be the what were the goals of each one of those small area plans. And we also discussed ZBA vacancies and the importance of having a full ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, in place. And I think that was it. That was everything. So we had pretty in-depth discussions about all of these things, and it's just all in an effort to, again, kind of clean things up and move forward with things that are a little more clear, a little more defined in the ordinances.
Thank you. Finance Operations, Chairwoman Christie Cox.
Finance and Operations Committee met today at 5 o'clock. And first order of business was the accommodations tax application. We reviewed those and made a recommendation to approve what was presented, with the exception of a couple of changes related to one applicant who was being awarded by the committee more than what they asked for. We reduced that amount and we increased one of the others to account for that. Do I need to go through the whole list for purposes of the minutes?
It'll be in the next council meeting's
Okay.
agenda.
We considered applications for service on the various boards. Culture and Heritage Commission, Bobby Walker will serve a first term. Recommendation is for Bobby Walker to serve a first term as an ex officio capacity. David Duncan will serve a first term for District 3. We deferred decision on District 5 appointee. Hospitality Tax Committee, District 5, we recommended Nick Cotton for a first term. He previously was finishing an unexpired term of a different committee member. Sandy Cranford for an at-large position. I think I got that wrong with you. Keep York County Beautiful, we recommended Kenya Powell for a first term in District 4. We deferred decision on District 7. Rock Hill Airport Commission, we deferred decision-making on that. We didn't have some information that we needed. York County Library Board, we recommended Pam Cato serve in District 2. Flint Hill Fire Tax Board, what did we decide on that one? I think we deferred that one.
No, we approved somebody for that one.
All right, I didn't write that one down. Let me push through here. We recommended Scott Kendrick for a first term. Lake Wiley Park Board and Leslie Fire Tax Board, the recommendation was to defer. We had to clean up one issue with that one. We also heard from Patrick Hamilton regarding the use of reserve fund balance for critical roads. And there's going to be a recommendation that's going to be made to the full council about expenditures and how that's going to be done. We also had an update on ethics review from Michael Kendry, and we expect to have something in writing at the next F&O meeting to have in discussion at committee level.
Thank you. Councilmember New, non-agenda comments. Mr. Roddy.
That would be me. Oh, real quick, it was good to hear some conversation about adding some new cell towers, because if you've ever been on the phone with me, we've dropped 2-3 calls before we finished that conversation, so it was good to hear that coming up. Also, I'd like to ask staff if they could give us an analysis of what the Fort Mill impact fees are doing, at the building. Let's look at the building permits. Let's see the money that's been generated, because it's coming up on, I think, about a year now since we've approved that. And, some people had concerns about would the building slow, would it continue, would it increase, decrease? So I would like to see those numbers, maybe in a spreadsheet of building permits. Here's the dollar figures that's above and beyond what the previous year were. And the reason what makes me think of it, because we heard tonight from Clover looking to do this, and so I would like to know how this is impacting the building and the community in Fort Mill. So I think that would be a beneficial piece of information for all of us while we're considering what Clover's looking to do. And also a quick comment about the beauty of serving on council. We're not all up here just to agree with each other. We all gonna have difference in opinions, but at the end of the day, we're elected by our district to represent the district as well as the county. I think it's a beautiful thing when we can agree to disagree and move on, and at the end of the day, we still respect each other, respect each other's opinion. I don't think the community would win if we all just agree with everything that everybody said just because it was Michael Johnson or Allison Love or Bump Roddy, Brett, Christy, Robert, or Joe. I think the beauty of what we do is to ask questions, is to have some difference in opinion, and from that point, work it out to what we can put together to best serve all of York County, versus whether it's a special interest group or a group that has a passion about one thing. There's always that middle ground that we always fight to achieve. There should never be a situation where this group, this side, always get what they want, because if you do it that way, someone's always going to be left out or someone's always going to be left to carry the burden.
So I just wanted to comment on that as far as how we all work together, get along together, and sometimes we don't see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, it's about respecting each other and their opinions, and if you agree, it's fine. If not, hey, the sun's gonna rise tomorrow regardless of what we say or do up here, and just hopefully we make it the best situation for our citizens.
Ms. Ruddy, I respectfully disagree with you. I think if more people up here agree with my opinion, it'll be fine. Who else? Anyone else? Any other new non-agenda comments?
I do have one.
Go ahead.
My kids always tell me that I always pick out the wrong stuff they do, and I don't tell them the good stuff they do. And so they challenged me this week to do that with them, and it also challenged me to do this in other areas of my life. And I have to say that when we appointed our interim, I got a little bit nervous about was that leaving a void in our planning department when we're going to have issues there, which is a big issue for stuff that's going on in my district. And I have to say this, Jonathan, I'm going to pronounce your last name wrong, Buono. I asked David some questions that I thought would take at least 3 weeks for me to get an answer back, and I swear I got answers back that were completely, I mean, I had a spreadsheet on one of them in the matter of maybe 2 hours, and I just have to say thank you so much for leaving that department temporarily in a place where obviously we're doing a great job, and that was very helpful, and I'm glad to see that we're covered in that department right now.
I'm going to follow up that with another compliment for someone, and Jonathan's doing a great job. You know, I have a lot of interaction with planning and zoning because we have a lot going on in Lake Wiley on the weekends with things left in the roads and runoff and things like that. So they don't want me to have their cell phone number, so I email them a lot over the weekends. But Mark Boland is a professional, and when he has to deal with people that are just outraged and upset and have all the wrong information, and he has to be the person to go out and meet with those people instead of me, Mark. Thank you for doing that and for knowing your business. You know, when you can go out and answer a technical question and have the right answers and calm those people down, that means everything to me as the council person who has spent an afternoon taking phone calls and just, you know, listen to frantic people. So I appreciate that. I had one of the guys, I'm going to tell this story, and I'm probably going to get somebody in trouble, but one of the enforcement guys was leaving as I was coming to a meeting. It might have been I think it was the zoning committee meeting or something. And he pulled up in his truck and he stopped, and he was very excited to have a new stormwater ordinance in place, and said that, you know, I've been doing some enforcing out in your area, and you know, the first thing they say is, well, we've always done it like this. And his response to them is, well, that's 2 weeks old, and you're not going to do it like this anymore. And so I think one thing that makes a big difference is when the staff and management know that this council has their back and that we're doing the right things. I think it gives them the wherewithal to go out and enforce things and just be a lot more firmer than they maybe have been in the past. So I appreciate that. I know y'all are working hard for us in that department.
Dr. Blackwell.
You know, based on some comments made tonight, I do want to give a reminder. I know 2 or 3 council members expressed concerns about things being done not in the perspective of all council members involved. I think 2 sit on the zoning committee. And I think that's some major issues coming through there that I don't want to see legislative ordinance decisions coming through there for us to just rubber stamp. So just remember, committees are not a legislative body. They're just an arm of efficiency. So when we get to major stuff, that should be in front of council, not kind of decided among the committee and then we just kind of rubber stamp it.
I just wanted to say, to just alleviate your concern.
We know we're going to workshop everything that comes out of every committee. We can hold up. Any other? Joel?
Well, we started this meeting recognizing some folks that are retiring after serving the county. Sergeant Gibson and Ms. Kaiser I never had the pleasure of working with. In my short time here, though, I have had the opportunity to serve alongside David Harmon, and I believe this is his last meeting, as we said, so I just wanted to thank you again for your service and wish you well with your future, and especially as a grandparent, I understand. So thank you very much.
And I think Joel actually stole my last comment because I had written that I wanted to say thank you to David Harmon once again. Thank you for what you have done. Thank you for your leadership. Joel is correct. All county employees are appreciated, but you're the county employee that's actually on my cell phone that I call more often than not. So I appreciate all you have done, and thank you, and I hope you enjoy time playing, as you have said, and enjoy some time up in North Carolina with your new grandchild very
I
soon.
guess we'll all be removing that number from our cell phone now, David.
I'm still gonna call him.
Yeah, we'll still, I won't, I'm not gonna,
He just
we'll
won't
still
answer
call
the
you.
call anymore. That's the difference.
If not, I'll call your son Jamie. He's a good friend of mine, so.
Citizen concerns. Tom Bach to discuss with council stormwater issues on Hammond Road.
Council members and Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom Bach. I live at 254 Hammond Road, and I think this is the pointer. But I really want to compliment David Harmon. I used to work with David here at the county many years ago. Congratulations, David. He was wonderful to work with, so you're really losing a good man. I also wanted to compliment this building. When I was here working, we were right across the way. Huge improvement. And it really shows that you as a county council are really, really looking forward. This is beautiful. I had a tour of it. I just wanted to compliment you all on that. We're here tonight as a result of the June council meeting. It is rezoning case 1912. That's along Hammond Road in Fort Mill. Ms. Shavna had mentioned something about our environmental concerns, and they basically were stormwater related. I do want to compliment two people in the planning area. One is Tammy Moraine, and one is Mark Mullen, and Mark's, of course, here tonight. They made a lot of field visits. We'll find out, my wife will talk about our particular property. But they were very diligent in making site visits, talking with us, gathering data and factual information, evaluating all the information, and coming up with plans to resolve the issue. So I really commend them for that. I'm speaking on behalf, of course, several of the neighbors in the community that have noticed the last 2 years, as a result of a lot of development, and not just in York County, but in Fort Mill, the last 2 years, the stormwater runoff, much more prevalent downstream in our downstream conveyances. As we show the map here, let's see here. Right in this area, of course, is Carolina Orchards. And I know that is, of course, in Fort Mill. But what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about retention basins and some of the limitations they have where we're concerned. Of course, there's 3 retention basins on this side right over here, along Osborne Road, and then along here, the back side. Those retention basins typically handle the 2-year storm and 10-year storm events. A lot of historic data comes in with determining what the amount of rainfall and the intensity is with a 2 and a 10-year storm. But these retention ponds have a capability of serving or getting rid of the 100-year storm events too. But it's typically where the 100-year storm event is at the top of the outlet structure, where it just goes and bypasses everything. The concern for 2 and 10-year storms discharge in the outlet structure is that there are smaller diameter pipes that are in the inlet structure for the 2-year and for the 10. The 2-year has
maybe 3-inch diameter type pipes, and the 10-year usually has around 12-inch, typically. The problem is during construction, these pipes usually or can sometimes get clogged, and the retention basins need maintenance. It's hard to see, and if enough silt and other debris gets in there, the water is forced through the upper part of the outlet structure, which causes a real problem, because the release of water should have been prior to for the 2 and 10-year storm. We did meet with the town of Fort Mill staff concerning Carolina Orchards. Again, I know that's not in the county, but I'll get to that in a sec. The plans for those 3 retention basins that I was pointing out, they had plans, they had calculations, and they were signed by a professional engineer in South Carolina. What the concern was, and it was one thing we had expressed to Mark, was that when we asked about the evaluation of stormwater past these ponds and coming in, the discharge goes directly into York County service area. We asked them the question, does the design engineer, do they look at that in their analysis or in their design? And the answer was no. We typically just, as long as water is passed through the area, the pond area, then a downstream evaluation that they typically don't do, especially if it's on a different service area like York County. At the end, Justice, right, there's a draw right here, and it crosses the railroad. Stormwater structure is crossing the railroad, Norfolk Southern, at that point. Many years ago, probably when this stormwater feature was put in under the railroad, they really didn't take into account the growth. Well, I don't know exactly when of course it was put in, but they didn't look at all the development that was probably going to be in the areas of railroads. The stormwater features were typically not sized back in the day, and that's one of our real concerns here. And later you will look at a video, hopefully it'll come up here, of that same area that crosses the railroad, and it's a dry day, and there's still ponding of water before it goes under the railroad tracks. That's a real concern, because apparently that pipe either has structural damage to it, or it has silt in it, or other debris in there. And it probably would, and what we were recommending is that a condition assessment be made on that particular storm drain that's going under the railroad, because it is very critical. I know that if you have erosion, and it has occurred in the bottom of the bank there on this side right here, and with the ponding during a dry period, that is a real big concern. That's one of the things that we wanted to bring up because of that. But what I had kind of thought of was, in talking with Mark and others, that it would be good from this point on to go through a little bit more of a coordinated effort between York County and the towns of Fort Mill, Rock Hill, and Tegakay as far as future stormwater planning. Kind of like what we have in the county with RFATs for transportation. There's a lot of coordination on signals and capacity on coming in and out of towns in the county. And just in thinking about it, the coordinated effort I think would be really, really, really good going forward. Because stormwater is it's really about 15 years ago, they really started using retention basins. They haven't really been prevalent until about 15 years ago. So it's kind of a new way to design stormwater detention. So I think that's basically what I'd like to cover. I know that in the ordinance changes to stormwater, there is, and I don't know if Mark could speak to it, but I think there is some coordinated efforts that are going to going forward with the towns, and I think that's really, really important. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
We're not allowed to.
Not allowed, okay. So I give up the time to Ms. Shavda, and she's going to speak specifically about her property.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chairman, council members, thank you very much for your service and for your affection for our county and for the residents. If you don't mind, may I have that slide back, because I can, the original one, and sorry, I have no clue how to use this. The map, yeah, the map. My name is Bonnie Chavda. I pastor All Nations Church at 360 Hammond Road, and this would be us right here. This whole area here is us. And as Tom mentioned, this is at the bottom corner of our property. And the topography of this entire area goes from higher ground to lower ground, lower ground, lower ground, lower ground, to where this literally is like the drain hole in the bottom of a sink. And I do have a video that I will show you. The red areas are obviously the areas under development and proposed development. This one this particular rezoning is for includes an additional area here, right next to the Masts property. Creek line is running here, and it also includes the area that the outflow from the Carolina retention pond flows directly onto the additional piece of property that is included in this development. And I have, this area, by the way, is a preserved wetlands, and the creek boundary is almost exactly the property line boundary on our southernmost between All Nation Church and Carolina Orchards. Over the last year and a half, I confess to you, I have gathered 577 pictorial records of the dramatic changes in the topography in that whole area, impacting the residents that are represented here tonight, impacting the creek beds and the wetlands that are there. Question about current drainage systems, including the ones for our property. Our church is a relatively small nonprofit, but the extent of impact of the stormwater runoff and ground saturation now, as well as the overflow in the creek beds, has been extensive in the last 2 years with all of the development around. And our appeal to the county is in the consideration of the additional further development the councilwoman talked about our affection and care for our pets and the residents of the county. I am here to appeal also for the land. And the clear cutting, the topsoil erosion has been massive. The creek beds, the ponds literally ran red for about a year and a half. So I'm sure that there is silting and things like that probably gathered in the bottom of some of these culverts, maybe particularly there at Norfolk Southern rail line. I have 5 main areas of concern. They are the impact on the existing residents, our properties. Several of the yards become mini swamps, meaning little swamps, for periods of time after general rainfall. Our church campus, the erosion is tremendously exacerbated in the last 2 years. Erosion of our roadways, our cement campus walkways and driveways, the surfaces are peeling up. Our existing draining system, Tammy and Mark were very gracious to come out and walk the property and look these things over. They made some wonderful recommendations to us that will include the repurposing of our swells, probably the addition of some additional French drains. We actually had our children's church and nursery building flood last year, not from, we've been there for 19 years. We've never had these problems until the last 2, and particularly the last 1 and 3 quarters. So we had our children's church and nursery flood on our campus, and as a result, the entire building ended up having to be gutted and renovated in order to reuse it. I have, as I said, 577 pictures, and it would be like the grandmother trying to force the HOA to watch her slideshow of her grandchildren's vacation for me to actually tell you the story. And when I got here, Karen, we tried to get our pictures up very briefly for you to tell a story so that I could walk you through the dynamic, but our systems wouldn't talk to one another. So I have some videos that are separate from some pictures that are separate. So I'm asking the council's indulgence for me to attempt to show you a couple of examples in this meeting. Our concerns include the impact to the residences around our church campus, the wetlands there, the roadways and swales, and obviously the culvert going under Norfolk Southern rail line. So now, if you don't mind, Karen, you can, I guess, put up the pictures, the still pictures first. And then, forgive me if I don't know how to do this. Is the green line? Left and right. Aha! Fantastic. Okay, this is standing up on the railroad on a dry day, following probably a few days of rain, but it's dry now, and you can see, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. So, yeah, you can see the whitewater coming over the Fords ponding area. I know Mark and Tammy came out with us and looked at some of this area. The erosion, the water is running from several different directions, but this eventually is fed by all of the stormwater basins now from Carolina Orchard surrounding. It runs up into the wetlands and directly to the creek streams that are running down by the Mast's home, behind the Box home, by Robert's house on the corner, and all of that eventually hits us. Anyway, standing up on the railroad and looking down into the water that flows directly into the culvert running under Norfolk Southern right here. And I do have a video of that. I may or may not show it to you, but right here at the culvert, the water collects and it slowly pools like it's trying to go down a clogged drain. So that's that one. This is the marshlands around the standing water. This is a debris area that is related back to the sewer line installations, but the marshland has expanded. There's often standing water over the sewer line areas. This is some of the pooling, ponding directly running to the railroad culvert underflow, which is right here. And this creek bed sort of traditionally has had about 2 to 4, depending on the area, feet of earth showing on the sides. And as you can see, it's at near overflow point. And by the way, right adjacent on this side, this is us, and this side is Carolina Orchards. And then they have the berm for their third retention pond starts right in here and runs up as well. So let's see. Yeah, that's what. This happens to be just an example of some of the kind of the amount of water runoff that's coming off of the edges. This happens to be the driveway at around the Carolina Orchards pump station, and that's on the side within a few feet of the creek bed that I just showed you. These are some pictures of the dog park that is next to the residents represented here tonight, the homes of the residents represented tonight, and the system that was created to take care of the water coming from the north and then going across into the creek bed going south towards the railroad is there, but it overflows. And this is some of the water that runs down behind these residents' homes, pooling, ponding, running out the other side, across the road to the mast's home. And you can see here the standing water. The creek bed has come to a point where it's higher and higher. The masts have experienced at least one flooding of their garage. They've had to build barriers around their garage to try and mediate the stormwater that comes there. This is the downflow from all of that on one side of the road. It happens on both sides. This is Hammond Road coming on from the homes represented here and others and onto our property. This is an example of some of the swales that we're going to have to work on. The erosion of our roadways is becoming extensive. The railroad and York County Utilities use these roadways, though theoretically they are on the church property. So, let's see, erosion pictures, standing water, flooding, peeling of our concrete. This happened to be an event where we sandbagged our property, some of our buildings, because of the threat of floods to our property. These showing some of the typical erosion that is occurring, some of the swales that we're going to have to rebuild. We will rebuild. And in this picture down here, there are some utility poles, and I'm sure they go way deep into the ground, but the erosion has begun to encroach on the bases of some of the utility poles there as well. Yeah, we have taken to using heavy-duty automotive mats to keep from having 1.5 inches of water over the top of our shoes after a rain, getting in and out of cars on our driveways. This is the big retention pond that the outlet flows under Osborne Farm Road and directly onto the wing piece of property on the new development proposal. And I have, that I would like for you to see, this is part of the stream bed running into the wetlands coming out of that retention pond overflow. The wetlands have developed several other creek run areas from the original ones that the water flowed down prior to 2 years ago. You can see here the topsoil in the creek bed. Again, this is down on the southern boundary line of our property, the northern boundary line of Carolina Orchards, and running towards the railroad. Pictures from the wetlands. During construction, unfortunately, as I said, everything red for about 1.5 years because of the clear cutting. And to some degree, in the back of our minds, the area that's under consideration for rezoning is one of the few areas in that whole locale that still has old growth hardwoods And I don't know exactly, we've seen the original permitting for the plans, but I'm appealing to the council and to the other folks involved to at least consider the dynamic of clear cutting the nearly 10 acres in this new development. So, Karen, now, if you could give me some.
Ms. Job,
Yes, sir.
we give each person about 10 to 15 minutes. You're over the 15, and I kind
Okay.
of let you go for a couple extra minutes.
Can I
but
show you one video?
If you will show us that video and
Yes,
then.
I'll show you one video. And it would be. And I'm sorry. Thank you for allowing me to pack 2 years into this presentation. What I need is number 27. So it would be that one right there. So this shows you an idea of the mass, force, and volume. This is where the culvert is on the Osborne Farms property that is the wing of the new development under proposal and rezoning. And this is the side of the retention pond, Carolina Orchards. And the bubbling area that we just passed by, you'll hear my voice come on in a minute, but the bubbling area is the fact that the culvert is completely submerged with the stormwater that's coming out of there. So, as Tom said, thank you for your attention and your service. Please consider the residents, the existing stormwater drainage systems, and the land itself as we're looking at going forward with this rezoning and the development. Thank you very much.
And it's creating this massive,
Before-
massive flood
Before Mr. Mass
properties.
goes, have you all given all of this material to staff? So every video, every picture, we have access that way. All right. Just want to make sure. Mr. Mast, Joey Mast? Oh. Good man. Thank you, sir. Denise Bach.
Okay, and if you'll give me that, I think it was that last file on there, Karen, the PDF. And while she's getting that, I'll just tell you that I have a new appreciation for the management of stormwater. You don't appreciate it fully until you can't flush your toilet for 3 days and the lawnmower is stuck in the mud in the front yard. So it changes your opinion of the stormwater. Okay, now this is from our backyard. Okay, originally there was a house back there and there was a soccer field. And right now, our yard, we're at 254 Hammond. We back up to Life Point Church, which is, of course, another new development. And so, that presented some problems as well, too. And, right now, Tammy Rain is helping us to straighten these out. But just to show you what runoff will do, let me see. Let me get the next. Okay, this is from the top of the berm. In the upper right-hand corner is their collection pond, where the water is supposed to go to. And so I'm just, this is just scanning. And now on that left side where that trailer is Southern Tree. Now they recently also knocked down a bunch of trees and put in more gravel, which took away some of the absorption of the trees. And then now that, and there was this gravel lot you see is new as well too. And that was starting to just roll down our direction. And it's coming around the berm and into our backyard, directly into our septic lines. So it rolled through our yard, and it's heading to, so you can really see the swamp. We're a little bit higher than Bonnie is. We're a little higher up, but we're still being impacted by stormwater, which is why this is such an issue. And this came through. This is heading to my neighbor's house now towards a creek that kind of collects it, and it's going to go from there across. You can see that the house across the street is Joey Mast's house, and he sits much lower than we do.
And so when this is gathered up, it's coming through a side pipe under the road, and it is just clobbering him. And he's also getting runoff from, other directions now from Life Point. So you can see all the water coming through here, and how much water we were having to deal with. I think I think that was it. And can you give me back the big map, just to kind of, how do I do the pointers there? The green button. Oh, okay. All righty. Where we are, this is our lot right over here. We are, Life Point is here, we are right over here. Now Joey Mess sits right across the street. And so the water, the dog park is right over in this corner here. So it's being collected. So he's getting clobbered with that. It's running down from here now, into there. Now right now it's being, Tammy Moraine is working on correcting this. It should flow here and then to the Hammond Pond and then out. But now once it is flowing correctly, I'm going to be a lot better off at my house, but I'm a little concerned too because there's still a lot of water, and that's going to be heading towards All Nations, and they're already swamped. So we desperately need some management of stormwater in this area, and this new development sits right in Joey Mast's backyard, and so if he's got now more houses and less absorption, that's going to be dumped more into his backyard as well too. So we desperately need some help with stormwater management here, and some thoughts on how to manage this so we're not, being destroyed. It's costing them a small fortune at All Nations to make all those corrections, which we shouldn't have to be correcting other people's development to keep ourselves out of water. We should be left alone. So I just encourage you to study this and to look at this because there is some big impact happening, and we need some help over here. But thank you all. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Yes, sir. Make a motion to go into executive session for contractual matter, Lake Crest Phase 1, receipt of legal advice on condemnation of project number 11149-009, track 31, receipt of legal advice condemnation of project number 11149-004, track 120, personnel matter, county manager search process, and a personnel manager to the interim county manager's compensation.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are going immediately into executive session. The council has come out of executive session. We have the following motions.
Motion to approve condemnation of project number 11149-009, track 31.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved.
Motion to approve condemnation of project number 11149-004, track 120.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved.
Motion to authorize county staff to initiate the process to post an RFP for a search firm for county manager by July 26th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none? One
All
more.
right. Motion to increase the current salary for the interim county manager by 15% and give the use of a county vehicle.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Second.
We are adjourned.